Hello, my name is Roland Jung from EPLAN Canada. I want to show you how Rital and EPLAN are strong partners for you when you build panels, but I'm going to add another partner with this. I'm going to add here Project Complete from Phoenix Contact. Phoenix Contact has developed some interesting tools. One of them is called Project Complete. It has two sides to it, a marking and a planning. The marking and planning can actually appear here as menus, marking and planning. I'm going to show you a little bit how that works. So once you install your Project Complete, what typically works out automatically, can also be driven individually, is actually here the interface to EPLAN. So technically, when everything works fine, inside EPLAN, when you go here to your tools, you should see marking and planning from Project Complete, Phoenix Contact. Now, what was done in the background is that in the background here on the backstage side, under Extras, Interfaces, scroll down to API Manage, Phoenix Contact managed to install here this specific API. Now the API is now allowing EPLAN and Clip Project to talk to each other. And I'm going to show you very quickly in a few minutes how that talking works. Now, of course, my intention behind the scene is to work with printers from Phoenix Contact. They have really good printers. Here in the printer configuration, when you buy one of those printers, usually comes with two cables. Don't forget to plug in the power cable and to plug in the USB cable into your computer and go and get the printer driver that actually belongs to that particular printer. Typically, then it's fairly easy. You have to just make sure that here inside your Project Complete marking, basically in the backstage here, right? So you go here to Files, you can go here to Printer Configuration, and you can pick the printer that you just have purchased. Now, of course, printers come in and allow you to put in a variety of different labels. Just make sure that the label here, the tag is correct. If you have multiple different labels set here, the ideal is probably to have one printer for each label. I mean, a lot of people do that. Otherwise, you have to switch the labels individually. Here, I have picked a WML6, a wraparound, and this is actually now in my printer. Now, I understand that the guys that actually do the printing are not the guys that do the design. But what I'm asking here is to actually reconsider, because the data comes from the design. The data comes from EPLAN, right? So within EPLAN, let's say you do a project. Very quickly, here, this is a project that has, at the moment, no particular pages. And you know how EPLAN works, right? In EPLAN, what you typically do is you say, okay, I'm going to create a new schematic page. Now, this new schematic page will be dedicated to electrical engineering. It will be dedicated to my panel A1, and it's going to become, let's say, page 10. I want to start with page 10, and this will be maybe my distribution page. So fairly simple here, distribution page, boom. And then you typically, when you work on this, you work on different plot frames. It could be a 1-ladder plot frame, 2-ladder plot frame in a certain size, depending on the paper that you use. If you use a regular printer 11 by 17, you may actually end up with something more like this, a little bit larger, whatever, right? These are just plot frames you can adapt and change. Then you just come and drag and drop whatever you wish to position here. And inside EPLAN, we call these macros, and these macros come in various sizes, various options, various different forms. And when you place them, of course, the magic happens. A few questions can pop up. For instance, here, what is your main disconnect? This will trigger some specific part numbers for those ones. And the rest has most likely already some part numbers that most likely came from the data portal. So technically, this part number that you see here was not created by myself, but this part number was actually picked from our wide library that is out in the cloud. It's called the EPLAN data portal. Data portal is directly accessible any EPLAN user, and If you look for a part, you actually know the part number. All you have to do is really just go in here in this data portal live inside your software and just type in the part number. So as an example here, if I'm picking that particular Phoenix contact power supply, here it is. And I can just drag and drop it and start using it, because all the data, not only the commercial data, but everything else surrounding this particular component is there, and I can just drag and drop it and start using it. So this is a fairly interesting feature from EPLAN, because as you know, there are millions of parts out there. There are hundreds of manufacturers you work with. Well, it's nice if you can just drag and drop it, and here you just continue. Now, another thing we have in EPLAN is, and this is the reality for most of you designers out there, you pretty much work with standard circuits, right? So here, these standard circuits, I've actually built some of them. For instance, as an example here, I'm going to add some motors, eventually some specific motors, maybe 3 motors, let's say, here of a special nature. But this is interesting because this configurator that I'm just basically creating here, and I'm just specifying, okay, what exactly I want, is actually something standard that you could have. It's called a cogenerator. It's a configurator to configure some very standard pages. So if you want to, I'm just adding here a page with actually page 11, as you can see here, and that page 11 just had 3 motors. Cool. Now, some of you will say, I'm working in a more custom environment. Fine, you can do that too. So you can create simply a new page. In this page, you can say, okay, I'm going to work with this particular plot frame. I'm going to do some PLCs, let's say here, and that's going to be my page number 12. Cool. Empty page appears. Everyone is happy. Now, what you can do now is you can actually look for parts. 1756, let's say OB. Well, let's see. OB, what do they have? OB, OB16, OB32, OB16E. We may have a few different parts that we typically use within the Allen Bradley scope here. So let's see here, we have some devices, okay? And I'm gonna pick this device here. I'm gonna check it out. It comes over, it tells me, hey, this was created in IC format. So what? I'm working NFPA. EPLAN can work IC or NFPA, and whatever you use, the symbol will just basically adapt itself. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the first portion of this PLC card, and I'm just going to place it there. Now, some of you will be smart and say, this is not how I draw. So what? You draw in a different rotation. Fine, just rotate, edit, rotate, turn this around like in the rotation. Do you want it on the right-hand side or do you want it on the left-hand side? Just rotate it the way you want. Eventually flip it around, right? So this way, and then just position it exactly where you want it. Maybe right there. Okay, happy? Cool. Okay, let's continue. You want something else, a favorite 24 VDC control that I have here. So I'm working very often with this these specific lines right here. I connect them to the previous pages. These are called interruption points. You may not need this one here if you don't have a 2-ladder plot frame, but if you wish to use a 2-ladder plot frame, all you have to do is change your plot frame. There you go, and you can actually have a second ladder on the right-hand side. So it's really easy. Interesting is that these cross references, they work automatically. This is really the magic of EPLAN, right? It's like asking Word if they can count pages. Of course they can. Now let's say that the controls we have on this side here, these 3 contacts, we want them, so I'm just going to go Control X, cut. I'm going to put them on this side here, Control View, and hey, look at this. Interesting in EPLAN is that they actually still connect to the other side. The cross references actually work. Everything works. Now, all I have to do now is just put those back and connect them. You can see that in EPLAN, we never draw wires. Wires are actually automatically drawn, and they actually have these nice T nodes that actually tell me how they are connected. Okay. Now, plus wires are not numbered in EPLAN. Wires get automatically numbered by the system. We have this connection enter designation here that will take care of any kind of wire numbering, whether it's the wire number that goes onto an output, whether it's a wire that goes to a previous page. So you can see even the wires sometimes tend to color themselves because they have a specific connection here. Now I can see blue might not be the good idea because blue was not my intention. This is not plus 24 VDC. I'm just going to move these over very quickly like this. And I'm going to do the operation again. So just renumber, because obviously it's not going to be the same number if you connect to the plus or to the minus VDC. And you can see colors change. Everything is nice. Here, this is the origin. Let's see if this is true. This goes back to this wire here that is really on 1031. This is a cool thing. This really means that the wires, the way that they are actually populated here is really how the wires will be done. So our wiring diagram is actually a true representation of the wiring, okay? Now this actually makes a huge difference because now I can trust these wire numbers that I just kicked out here and I can have them printed. Now, a small difference here very quickly, I'm just going to check on this page because I have not specified where these motors are. So I can basically say here, okay, these motors are actually out in the field. And there's a small, simple trick. I mean, something that you probably do very often, like a small box like this, which basically calls like these dashed lines. Anyways, and this all is actually fed on a terminal strip, like a TB1 terminal strip, something like that. When we talk about terminals, it's really cool because you go to a terminal strip, and a terminal strip is really more complex than just a terminal, right? So if you take this so-called TB1, let's see where the other ones are, TB1 here, and I go to the edit menu, and you can see these are the different terminals, and very often these terminals are sorted a certain way. I often do a page-based sorting. I often do here a renumbering, like I number these terminals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just to have a clarity on which terminal I'm connected. They have part numbers. And interesting is they usually also have some accessories. I'm not going to show this in this video, but there is a project complete planning that will actually help me add the correct accessories like the clip fix and isolating plates to each of these terminals. Today's video will not handle this. Today's video is actually to show you how quickly, from a very quick design like this, okay, I in EPLAN can get the data out for my friends down on the shop floor for the marking side. Here you can see the project complete marking interface, which will ask me, okay, what do you want to print? Device markers, cable markers, and wire tags. Perfect. You just export, and there you go. There's absolutely no excuse in 2022 or in version 2023 to not take advantage of this, because it literally takes you less than 30 seconds to switch from EPLAN to Clip Project and to generate every single wire, device tags alike with wires. So all you have to do is really get the interface connected, which is pretty much a no-brainer. It's quite easy. And then you get all your wires. You get the devices. We see all the motors and all the devices. We have a few wire tags here. Now these are all the wire tags that are inside this project, okay? What I like to use here often is my source and target and the wire number. You don't necessarily have to do this. This is a specific configuration that I created. And this is also something quite easy, because if you export from EPLAN the file, here in the data exchange, they have created this really great interface to connect both sides. So here, for instance, if I take the wiring marker that I just created here, and I check it out, you can configure this very, very precisely without going into every single detail. We can actually check this out at a later point in time. But it really, there is no reason for anyone not to use these features, because now you can save this file here for the shop floor if you're the designer, and the shop floor only has to open it and they just have to basically print it, right? The data from EPLAN is extremely easy to transfer to Phoenix Contact project complete. And then it's extremely easy down on the shop floor to actually print those labels. Imagine someone would have to actually do these wire labels one by one. They most likely would never do it as complex as I did here, because they would never put the source, target, and wire number. They would probably just go with the wire number and that's it. So here, really, EPLAN, Phoenix Contact have really made it easy. Of course, the rest of EPLAN continues, and as you know, in EPLAN, if you have organized your reports, it will generate. Let's quickly take a look at this magic tool I was just talking about, the EPLAN Smart Wiring. So the EPLAN Smart Wiring is this tool here where the electrician actually registers his name, and then he can take over a specific project or continue an existing project. Now, this project can be a project that has been started by some colleagues, and then you can take it from where he left it. Here, this project is actually a brand new project, and you can see here, technically, I have every single wire. I have a few different features here, and if I start wiring this, I do have the option to confirm. I'm not going to do it for the moment. I can even check out some schematics here. Now, going back to my project here in the EPLAN side, let's take a look at our layout. Now, the layout, of course, when we open it, has already a few components in it. And as you know, we have all the components we've added. We can check out the components that have not yet been placed. Like here, I have a few terminals that haven't been placed. Let's see if we place these terminals all together. Like I said, I have not really handled the different accessories, but I do have a few different terminals here I can place. These all come from the schematics. And this is where the routing is actually done. So routing means evaluate the best possible wire route and calculate the wire length. So here what it does, as you can see, it really goes in there and actually does the wiring exactly to every component. If I check back what I have here on the internal wiring list, you will see that a lot of these wires will have a length. Now the export I just did a little bit earlier makes a lot of sense, because you can now export the wiring, and I'll just do this. This is the EPLAN PXE Rital NFPA, and once it is exported, I can actually start this project within my smart wiring application. So as soon as this is actually done and over, the routing information is now servicing the smart wiring application to help the electrician actually do the landing a little bit more comfortable. So let's switch over here. Let's take a look at how it looks like. Here we open a new project. It's going to be this particular project, EPLAN PXE Rital, that I just did. And you will see the exact same panel here on the right-hand side. You will see all the wires we have to install. And the idea here, of course, you can go closer, you can click on a specific device, check out where that device is, where the other connection is, how it actually runs from one to another. And if your intention is to actually go and wire it, you can see the exact wire length. You can wire it up on both ends, and it actually will keep track here within the status of these wires. Now let's say this is not installed, and I will just uninstall it and we'll allow it. I can also check for very specific components. Let's say I want to see everything that is connected to CB3. I can go here and it will actually narrow it down to my CB3, and I can check where the device is. Really cool feature, because if I have any kind of questions, I can actually go here inside the schematics, and these are the same schematics as what we had seen just earlier. These are actually the 3 pages, as you can see here, that we created together earlier. If you see any kind of errors or mistakes or anything that actually is questionable, you can put here a comment that will be readable from any of your EPLAN colleagues and designers. And this is really a fabulous help to build this panel. Of course, if you want to see a little bit more about the panel itself, you can go inside here, and we will actually be able to look at every single detail. It's a 3D digital twin of the real panel and how it's wired. Interestingly, in this actual world with this capability we have here, we no longer need really the high-end expertise that we needed before. And the other thing that is also interesting is that you can guarantee that two different machines with the same, of course, design will be wired up exactly the same. I think this is really an interesting feature to have this kind of an interface at the electrician's level. Remember, the data comes from EPLAN. Phoenix Contact, I believe, has something similar that is actually attached to the printer where you can actually print here these wire. And of course, if you're attached to the Phoenix Contact printer, you can use your Phoenix Contact printing device to actually print the individual wires. The one that I had shown you a little bit earlier is one of the previous generation of printers. That one will actually run a series of wire labels that I will have pre-printed. So I can use this interface here to fabricate and later land individually in a different instance. It's really a cool feature. This is the EPLAN Smart Wiring Tool. Okay. So coming back, this was Rital EPLAN showing you how EPLAN works together also with Phoenix Contact, how we actually make up for really strong partners with all these people together.